As I prepare to get into lip sync animation, let's just take a look at what we've got on the mouth so far, starting with this first phrase.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
All right, so the keys on the mouth are still pretty organized. I haven't started offsetting anything yet. These are all the keys in the mouth controls. You can see that they all land on the same frames, and you can see that they're just pose to pose. There's like maybe 4 frame transitions between each expression. But other than that, there's not a lot going on. So there's basically 1, 2, 3, 4 expressions. For me, it's really important to have the mouth as part of the expressions in the blocking, just to read the overall emotion. And then once I'm ready for my lip sync, I try to build the sounds, build the lip shapes into those expressions, and create my my mouth shapes custom for that camera, for that emotion, and for that character. I don't use pre-saved visemes or predetermined, phonemes, anything like that. I try to build everything organically, and I have a layered process that I do for that, which I will go over with you now. The first thing I'm going to do is just a simple pass on the jaw opening and closing. So I'll be selecting Gwen's jaw control and just using the X rotation, the RX control, to open and close in time with the dialogue. And I have the waveform here in my timeline, which is handy for seeing where the spikes in the audio, so I can help me to adjust the timing of my jaw. But I'm just going to leave everything alone except for the jaw, and I'll basically go through kind of on twos and just listen to where the jaw needs to open and listen to where it needs to close. Alright, there's an open here for R. And then on E, on the R, we, the jaw can close a little bit. And keep closing a bit for the T sound on taking. And then I'll open up for the A on taking. And I'll just hold it there for a frame or two, and then close it for the K, for the king. I know on the S of this, I want the teeth pretty close together, so I'm going to close the jaw a bit for that. And right now I can't really see the teeth. I'll have to open up the lips a little bit later. This is kind of a leap of faith, just planning ahead to where I know those teeth are going to be. Just hold that S a little bit longer. And hold the T of 2 closed a little bit. And then we're going to go into the OO shape, which is not probably going to be terribly wide open, but there's already some there. I'll just go ahead and key that for 2. Here I'm getting into an F shape. So I don't have to close the jaw completely, but I need to be able to close it enough for that bottom lip to come up and touch the top teeth. And I want to hold that F shape for at least 2 frames. And then go into the ah of far. Jump 2 frames ahead there, and let's open that up. This is probably going to be my biggest open mouth shape for this phrase. And then she's coming back into that shape, so I'm going to need to close the jaw a little bit, but most of that's going to happen in the corners of the mouth. And then I'll let the mouth just kind of keep easing shut a little bit. Here, I'll do it in the spline here. Just have that be an ease in into a more closed shape. And then the jaw will relax a little bit closed here. I'll probably push that a little bit further towards closed. And I'll go ahead and play this.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, I feel like the extremes are pretty much there, but the spacing in between the extremes is really linear and really soft. When I'm opening the jaw, I really want to pop that jaw open, so I'm kind of exploding into my open shapes. So in between every pair of extremes, I want to put a breakdown where I favor the open shape. So in this case, you know, for the ah, she's popping into that ah shape, ah, and I don't want to leave any linear transitions in here if I can. So I always want to favor one extreme or the other, usually favoring the open extreme when in doubt. So let's keep the mouth open a little bit here. For are we? I feel like I can keep that jaw closed a little bit longer for taking the T. Sounds like there's a little exhale on there, taking. And then I want to pop into that open shape for the ah, or sorry, for the A, taking. So let's just pop that mouth open there by really favoring the open shape. As a general rule, I try not to have the jaw change directions on fewer than 2 frames. So if it's traveling in one direction, it won't reverse twice, you know, in 3 frames. It's going to travel in 2 frames for any direction it's traveling. Otherwise, the jaw motion might get really chattery. And I may end up with some jaw animation on 1s, and that's okay, because I want to keep it feeling snappy. Here again, I want to favor that open shape, so I'll just key that and build a little ease in there. And favor into that F shape, because she really emphasizes that F on far. I could probably even close the jaw a little bit more for that.
It's too far.
And then, but definitely on this far, I need to favor that open shape. When the dialogue's being played back, when the animation's being played back, we want the audience to read our extreme shapes, our poses. We don't want them to read the in-between so much. So always try to be favoring your extreme poses. And don't leave anything in linear in-betweens if you can help it. If you're not sure where to open or close the jaw or how many times the jaw should open, a good simple test is to put your finger on your chin and then say the dialogue along with the character and feel where the jaw opens and closes. Chances are you don't need to open the jaw as often as you think you do. Sometimes the jaw can be making a vowel sound as it's closing instead of opening. For example, if you say the phrase, get on the bus, you might think, well, there's 4 vowels in that. Get on the bus. 4 syllables needs 4 jaw opens. Actually, all you really need to open is 2 times. For get on, for get, the jaw doesn't really need to open. For on, obviously the jaw opens. The, as you say the jaw can be closing, and then bus, it'll open again. So close, open, close, open. Get on the bus. Only 2 opens for get on the bus.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
I feel like I need to close the jaw a little bit sooner for the king. Yeah, right here, this key is just staying a little too open.
Too far? Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
I'm going to go ahead and do my next pass, which would be the corners. Corners of the mouth moving up and down and in and out. Now, for the most part, the up and down motion has already been built in. A lot of it's been built in by the blocking that I have for the expressions. You know, is she in a smile or is she in a frown? But you may find that as the jaw moves open and closed that you start to lose the smile or the frown a little bit because the corners naturally travel up and down with the jaw, and so you might need to counter animate the corners up or down to favor that expression. As far as moving left or right or in and out with the X-translate, that's obviously going to help us with our oo sounds and our ers, and then going wider for our e sounds and sounds. So this time I'm going to listen to the dialogue for my oos and ers, any sounds that need to be at the front of the mouth, and pull the corners in. And for anything wider, like an or an e, I'm going to pull the corners a little bit wider. So right here at the beginning on R, That's going to be the R sound. A lot of that will happen with the lips, or the corners of the lips pinching off, but a little bit I think can happen with the corners coming forward as well. So let's just pull the mouth corner forward a little bit with TX. Same thing with the W on we. That makes sort of an ooh shape. For my oohs, I don't always want to bring the corners all the way in to make a tiny hole in the front of the mouth. I like to bring it forward a little bit and then seal off the corners of the lips using the shaping controls. That way it's easier to maintain the expressions. There will be some times when I want to bring the corners all the way in for a nice round little O in the front of the mouth, but most of the time I just move it in a little bit and let the lips do the rest of the work. So for this W on we, the ooh, I'll just bring the corners in a little bit more and maybe down a little bit there. And then for the E on we, they need to go wider. They're already moving wide into that smile, so I don't think I need to add any more. And then she's going into the A on taking. I can probably push that a little bit farther over, a little bit wider. Right now I'm just working on the one side of the mouth because it's easier to work in one control at a time, and because this is the side of the mouth facing the camera, so it's the more important one. Still in that E shape for take-ing, keeping it wide. On a sound like this, you could either do that at the front of the mouth, this, or wide, this. It's kind of dealer's choice which way you want to go. So I like to think, what's the simplest solution based on where the mouth's going to go next? She's going to have to go into an ooh shape. So I think I'll start to bring that corner forward so she can start anticipating that ooh shape rather than having to pop there really quickly after that S. So here, on that T for 2, I'm going to start bringing that corner down and in. So by the time she hits the ooh, the corner's already there, mostly there. And then the corner's pulling back for the F in far. Again, F could be at the front of the mouth or it could be wide. I'm just going to leave it where it was for the expression. Maybe just pull it up just a little bit. And for far, I'm just going to pull that corner down a little bit. Because I think of an ah being a very open, fa, more relaxed mouth shape. And then growing back up into that smile for the R on far. And I think this can be a wider R because I want to favor that smile shape. You know, but if you're ever in doubt, get the mirror out and see what your own mouth does. And then the mouth is relaxing here, so let's just make sure that corner has an ease in. And notice I'm not trying to align my keys with the keys I have in the jaw. This is just another straight ahead pass on the corners. I don't care what frames my keys land on at this point, so long as they look right, so long as they feel like they're in the correct sync with the audio.
Taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Okay. One thing I notice about some of this corner movement is that it's a little bit linear, not just in the spacing, but in the path that it travels.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
For example, when the corner comes down on far and comes back up, it just kind of moves up and down in a straight line. I want to try to build an arc in there. It'll help make that mouth feel more fleshy and organic, and it'll be prettier to look at. So to do that, I'll need to bring the corner forward a little sooner, I think. I'm just going to go ahead straight ahead this corner. Now you can see on far, the corner of the mouth has a nice arc to it. I feel like maybe it doesn't need to move down quite so much, so let me adjust my TY here a bit.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
I'm going to go ahead and do a pass on the other corner too, and I can use this splines on this corner as reference for it, since they'll generally be moving in sync. And maybe I can even steal some animation here. See how that goes. Okay, obviously some of the values aren't quite right. the screen right corner is going up too high there, but I can adjust this spline to make it work. Let's go ahead and just scale that back. Oops. The X translates move in opposite directions, so this will be a little bit trickier, but let's see if we can make it work. I'm going to go ahead and buffer this curve first, make a little ghost of it so I can have it for reference. And I'll go ahead and flop the direction on it.
Are we taking this too far?
Alright, it's giving me something there that's pretty useful. I'm just going to go ahead and scale it back like I did on the other side, because I'm really favoring the screen right side of her mouth in the movement. I'm not doing so much on the screen left side. Oops.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
After watching the animation a little bit more, I decided to do some more tweaks to simplify things.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
I decided to get into the smile a little bit earlier, and just making sure that the corner of the mouth is moving in simpler arcs. So now I'm ready to go ahead and start working on shaping the lips a little bit more. The first thing I would want to do is sealing the lips for B's, P's, or M sounds. Unfortunately, there are none of those sounds in this dialogue, which is kind of weird. But also closing the bottom lip under the top teeth for the F or V sound. In this case, the F and far. I'll need to make sure the bottom lip is contacting the top teeth. And then I'm going to want to start shaping the lips as they go into the corner of the mouth for getting my oohs and ers and ch and sh and j, pinching off the corners of the mouth so that they form a smaller opening at the front of the face. This will be on top of the work I've done bringing the corners in and out to make those smaller shapes at the front of the face. So first let's deal with the lip contact for the F. I hear about 3 frames of F in there. Normally, it goes by faster. In this case, I feel like she's emphasizing that sound, which is great. It's going to make it really easy to read. But even if you only heard it for 1 frame, you'd want to try to get that lip closed for 2 frames. Generally, if you want the audience to be able to read a shape, you have to hold it for at least 2 frames. This is especially important for B's and M's and P's. And it goes back to the idea of really favoring the extremes in your mouth shape. So the audience is only reading the shapes that are making the sounds, and they're less paying attention to the in-betweens. So let's see, where's that last frame where I need that F sound? I think right here on 48. So let's just bring this lip up here and make sure it's touching the teeth. Shape that like so. I might even bring the top lip up a little bit to reveal those top teeth so that we're not just getting a little bit of sliver of top teeth showing there. Let me go to the previous key here and pull that up so she's just anticipating that a little bit. So we've got a closed lip shape there. And for an F, you can have the bottom lip curled in or curled out. Depends partially on attitude, partially on what sounds are surrounding it. So she's saying too far. So I imagine that lip's already going to be out and sticking out because of the ooh shape that came right in front of it. So I'm just going to leave that lip curled out a little bit. I'll do a curl pass later. For right now, I might pull that lip out a little bit in TZ. We go back and shape this so we seal off those teeth. I think I'll pull up the top lip just a bit more. And so that's the last frame where I want the F shape. So I'm going to let the lips ease out of that for the next pose here. So 3 frames later, I'm just going to go to those lip controls and copy back in the expression shape that I had from before. Okay, far. I see the bottom teeth creeping in just a little bit right there. I can fix that later, but it's something to be aware of. I hate seeing just little tiny hints of teeth like that. You either want to show them or hide them. Alright, so we posed the last frame of the F. I'm going to go ahead and pose it for 2 frames previous to that. So let me just select my lip controls here. Okay, let's just copy this pose, paste it on the previous pose, and or the previous frame, and then 1 frame before we'll paste it again. Now, the jaw is moving slightly through this sound, so I'm going to have to adjust the pose on the lower lip to compensate for that. So here the bottom lip will come up a little bit higher just to reach the teeth, and then it can there. So that's got a nice solid feel of contact to it, and then it pops out of the F nicely. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now I can go ahead and start working towards the corners of the mouth, closing those off for oohs and ers and any other sounds that are at the front of the mouth, and then opening them up for e's and wider shapes. You can see there's already a little bit of that pinching off going on in the corner just in this expression pose that I've set. I think I might back off on that a little bit just so we have somewhere to go for the R that's coming up in the word R. So the jaw is opening up for the ah of R, and then I want to have the lips start to close off as the jaw comes closed again. Right here, so it's going into the R we. So both of those sounds, the and the oo for we, are going to need to have the corners pinched off. Let's try moving that a little bit further out there. And let's go to the next frame and make sure that they're closed off there as well. And maybe I'll bring the top lip down a little bit more there too. And the bottom lip up a little bit, just so we can make a smaller hole there. I feel like the mouth's getting a little bit duck shaped there, having that overhang there, so I just need to counteract that shape a little bit by pulling that up. There we go. Okay, and I also don't like how much these lips are overlapping here, so let me just pull the bottom lip down a little bit there. So you still feel the pinch, but it doesn't feel like the bottom lip is going under the top lip and giving it that duck feeling. So this is a little tricky because next, right after the oo of our we, she's going to go into the e of we. So let's just make sure that we have this mouth stuff broken down here. Break all that down, and then going to hit this e shape about 3 frames later. So I'm just going to open this corner up to be a little bit straighter going into the corner. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I like to keep a little bit of curvature, a little bit of tension there, but just straighter than we had before. And for the A here on taking, I think I want to see a little bit more of the top teeth there, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the top lip up a little bit, and I think I'll open up the bottom a little bit too. Not enough to show teeth, but just enough to add a little bit more shape change there. Now she says, are we taking this too far, which means there's going to be a TH sound in there, which means there's going to be a little tongue peeking out later. There's not really much we need to do with the lips, but I might want to leave a little bit of space for that tongue to come out on the TH. It's probably going to be around frame 37, so I'm just going to pull that bottom lip down a little bit on 37 just to make room so we can see a little bit of that tongue peek through there. And then there's a really strong S sound here for this, so I want to see the bottom teeth for that. I like to see the top and bottom teeth for S's. Right here, the last frame I hear it on is frame 40. Let's just go ahead and pull down that bottom lip, like so. You know, if I'm already going to be showing those bottom teeth later on for the S, I might as well do it for the TH as well. So I'll just start opening up that bottom lip a little bit sooner for that TH, and that'll flow nicely into the S. Alright, now we're going from the S into another oo shape for 2. So let's just make sure we're keyed here, and then we're going to go into the oo shape. Alright, so here's where we've got the oo. A lot of times I like to cover the teeth for an ooh, so you just see a little bit of you just see the black in between the lips. And I'm going to pull that top lip down, and I'm going to close off the corners to get that nice little hole at the front of the mouth here. Alright, I think that makes a nice ooh shape. Let's zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to go a couple frames ahead and start to move into that shape. I'm feeling that jaw pop right there. I think maybe I'll soften that jaw pop a little bit. It's got a nice energetic kind of explosive feel to it. But I think in this case I want to soften it just a little bit so that the pop on far feels stronger by contrast. So I'll just open up that jaw a little bit more there. It's still more or less a fast out of the closed pose. It's just not holding closed so long. And now I'm getting a few frames of this really clear ooh shape here. Alright, let's play that whole thing back and see how it looks.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, I think it's looking good. I notice a pop on the top lip in taking that I might want to soften. Let's just look at the TY on that top lip.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Let's watch a play blast of what we've got for the lip sync so far.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, we're not completely done with lip sync, obviously. I still have a few more passes I want to do, but I think this is feeling pretty good. And if this was a shot of the character, maybe in a full body shot or a further away shot, this would probably be good enough. But because we're up close, we're going to want to add more detail and more exaggeration. One place that was bothering me a little bit is the mouth getting into this first ooh shape right here. It feels just a little bit slow and even the way those lips are traveling in. So I think I want to hold the lips back a little bit longer and then have them move more sharply into that ooh shape, just to give that first part of the dialogue a little bit more snappiness. And then the relax on the corners of the mouth here at the end and the change of shape on the lips, I think that needs a little softer ease in there. So I'll go ahead and fix those things. So the next pass will be cheating features left and right to make them look better for camera and cheat perspective. And I'll be moving the lips in and out of the face as well. For the next pass of my layered lip sync technique, I'm going to go in and start pushing some of the lip shapes left and right, favoring one direction or another to try to get some more asymmetrical shapes that are really inspired by some of the graphic mouth shapes that you might see in 2D animation. And this is going towards the principle of cheating things for camera, not necessarily cheating things in a way that's anatomically correct or makes sense from any perspective, but really favoring things to look good for the camera. Let me go ahead and zoom in on her mouth. So I'll be using a lot of TX controls on the lips, just pushing them left and right in screen space so that things feel like they're moving in and out of the face at this 3/4 angle. First place I want to do that is on the ooh, fur, or wee. Just going to push these out a little bit more and maybe even take some of the smaller controls on the lips towards the center and favor those as well. And then for the wider shapes like take or we, the E or the A, I can do the opposite and pull them back the other way a little bit. Pull these off to screen. Even for the E on ing, I can pull those over a little bit. Here again, the ooh on too far. I'm also going to do a little bit of Z translation on this to translate the lips away from the face. You can see from the front view here how the shape really doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the front in its asymmetry and the way it's kind of skewed over to one side. But from the camera angle, it looks pretty nice. I'm just looking back over what I've been doing here. I want to pull this bottom lip down a little bit more to show a little bit of the teeth for the T on taking. And also, I don't like how this curve on the bottom lip is really just like a semicircle. It doesn't really have much bias to it. So I want to try to break that up and add a little bit more shaping to it. You know, I try to work in discrete passes when I'm doing this layered approach. But sometimes, you know, you catch things later and you have to go back and adjust things. It's not always a linear pipeline from one part of the pass to another. So again, just trying to get a more interesting curve here, maybe something a little bit more like a Nike swoosh and less like just a perfect slice of watermelon, for example. Same thing here. Let's just flatten out this part of the curve a little bit more.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
All right, I like how that's feeling overall. The things that are bugging me at this point are how there's a lot of movement and stretching happening in the top lip here, and there's nothing in the nose. I haven't gotten to the nose yet. That'll be part of my polish pass moving forward. Also just loosening up the overall jaw and lower face, using some of the broader controls to add a little bit of squash and stretch and looseness to that. I'm pretty happy with what's happening in the lips here. I might still go back and adjust some of the shapes here once I've done all my passes, just to try to push for simplicity and more of a sense of design in the face. But generally I'm happy with the articulation and the fleshiness of the mouth for this section. Now I'm getting into the polish part of my layered lip sync approach, and I'm going to start trying to loosen up the jaw a little bit and actually add some left and right motion in the jaw. So not only are the corners arcing and the lips arcing, but I'd like to add a little bit of arcing into the jaw so it's not just firing on one axis. I also just want to loosen up the whole lower part of the face a little bit to follow along with the sync, and that includes adding some interaction between the nose and the mouth. I'm going to use this broad rotation control here to start loosening up the face. I like this because it includes a little bit of the nose, all the jaw and the teeth and the tongue, but it doesn't affect the eyes at all. So it's a nice way to loosen up the lower part of the head and still maintain that sense of structure. So for the ooh here on for we, I'm going to go ahead and just start to move that off a little bit to screen left, and maybe a little bit forward too. Bring that up to the front of the face. We'll just ease out of that previous shape. And then for the A on taking, you can see we're already doing a little bit of rotation there to slide that over to screen right. I think I could stay there a little bit longer. Maybe it's hitting a little bit hard and I could ease into that. And I think I'll stay over there a little bit longer and then have the bigger transition happen into the 2. And I want that F to happen still at the front of the mouth. So I'm going to keep that over to screen left a bit until the R, far, it'll arc back to the right. So I'll just key this here. And for the F, I'll just keep that a little bit more favoring there. And then for the relax the shape here, I'll also relax that angle a bit, so you feel that in the whole face. I feel like it's moving over to the left a little bit too early here. Let's just delay that. And I like the arcing that's happening here. Maybe it's just a little bit too broad. Let me just decrease this range a bit, because I want the words to and far to be the biggest change. So now I'm just looking at the spline and seeing where the most extreme parts are. So for we taking this, I want it to be a smaller change than too far, which is right here.
Are we taking this too far?
Alright, I like how that's feeling. Let's add a little bit of squash and stretch too. Gwen has this squash and stretch control here for the mouth, which is maybe a little bit more aggressive than I want. She also just has a straight up translate with no squash and stretch, no volume preservation here for the lower half of the face. I'm going to use those two together in tandem to kind of split the difference here. A little bit of volume preservation, a little bit of just up and down movement. So first for the jaw opening on R, I'll just stretch that a little bit. And then for the opening on taking, I want to pop that because that's a pretty big vowel there. Mostly looking at the Y translates here, so let's just isolate that in the graph editor. And then definitely on far, I want to add a little bit of movement there. Maybe I'll even squash a little bit on the F of far. So I'm not doing this for every syllable. I'm mostly just trying to punch the syllables that I feel like are accented in the dialogue or will represent the biggest shape changes. In fact, I think I'll tone it down for the R because that's relatively small shape change there. But I do want to favor these extremes.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, from here I want to go ahead and start to layer in a bit on the nose. For me, the thing that drives the nose most is looking at the length of the top lip, especially the places where I feel like it gets a little too long or a little too short, and then using the nose to bridge the gap a little bit. Right here there's a weird thing happening where the nose seems to travel up as the lips come down, so I'm definitely going to need to counter animate that. And I also want, there might be places where the nostrils, the sides of the nose, need to move in and out based on what the corners of the mouth are doing. So you feel the flesh of the cheek and the corner of the mouth tugging on the nose. And then as far as expressions, there may be some places where I want to sneer the nose a little bit just to push an attitude or a dialogue accent. Looking at it from the front here, I just want to grab this nose translate control and kind of pull it down a little bit so that it's following along with what the lip is doing. Not one-to-one, it's kind of splitting the difference. And then on here, when she's showing her teeth for the T on taking, I could probably push it up a little bit. And for 2, the ooh shape, I want to pull that back down. Maybe I'll add a little rotation in 2. Oops. And then here for the F, I feel like it needs to move up because that top lip is getting pretty short. In addition to translating the nose, I'll also do a little bit of squash and stretch. That'll probably be in keeping with the timing of the overall nose movement, so I can just go to those extremes and do a little bit of stretching on the nose, particularly on the ooh shapes. So now the nose feels like it's a lot more related to what the mouth is doing. And let's add a little bit of movement to the nostrils here, just to tie them into what the corners of the mouth are doing. So first I'll go to any places where the corners are coming in for an ooh shape. So really the corner isn't moving that much here, it's mostly happening in the pinch of the mouth. So I think it's going to be on the 2 that we need to move that nostril. And I can see it's already moving a little bit, but I can push that. Push it down and in a bit, and then it'll return over here on far. Maybe I can pull that out even a bit more. Let's make sure that the nostril doesn't get ahead of the mouth. Let's just hold that back a little further, a little longer. And we're not going to relax completely out of it. Maybe about 30% out of it.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, I think that's feeling pretty good. I like the fleshiness in the nose, I like the squash and stretch in the lower part of the face, and the arcing of the jaw. Here's a play blast of the lip sync so far.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
I'm pretty happy with most of it. I think I need a little bit of movement at the front of the shot here, just for the first second or so. Just some keep alive in the mouth, maybe a little bit of anticipation of the dialogue. And then, while I like how loose the face feels in the left-to-right motion, I do notice the top teeth moving a lot, especially like right through here, which takes away from the solid feeling of the skull. It doesn't feel like bone anymore. It's starting to feel like rubber. So I think I will take some of the movement out of the larger left to right rotation control for the lower face and put some of it back into just the jaw. So we still get the nice arcs on the chin, but the movement of the teeth and the upper jaw is lessened. You don't want the audience to see the teeth moving. You just want them to feel the looseness in the face. And if you're going to move the top teeth, you want to try to hide it in pose changes or with closed mouth or other tricks like that. Beyond that, I need to do some animation in the tongue. And then I want to do a little bit of overall squash and stretch to the head on a few accent points, like on far. This is kind of like the biggest stretch pose of the performance, the dialogue for this first section. So in addition to the stretching I've got on the eyebrows and the eyes and the jaw opening there, I think I could put a little bit of that through the whole head just to loosen that up a little bit. I haven't really done any squash and stretch on the top of the cranium here. And while I want to be very reserved about that, because again, I want it to feel like there's bone there, there's solidity there, I do want to feel a little bit of flexibility just to keep a little bit of that cartoony appeal in here so it doesn't feel too computery and too perfectly locked. One of the simplest ways I can add a little bit of keep alive to the beginning is just to have the jaw open slightly or close slightly to suggest breathing, like an inhale or an anticipation to the dialogue. I think at the beginning of the animation, I'll just have the jaw closed a little bit more. And I can add a little bit of movement to the corners as well. And maybe a bit to the top lip. Now I'm going to go ahead and reduce the movement on the jaw rotation here, or the lower face rotation here, to mitigate the upper teeth moving. And I'm going to do that by toning down the Z rotation on this control and then adding a little bit of X translation to the jaw itself. Hopefully that won't mess up the posing in the corners of my mouth too much. So we'll be looking at Z rotate and X translates. First I'll do the scaling down here on the rotation. And then I'm going to copy paste that onto the X translate of the jaw. It's probably going to be too much, but we'll see. Yeah, the translate's very sensitive there, so I'm going to need to scale that down. It's working pretty well. And I just want to see the arc on the chin. And now for a little bit of tongue animation. Tongue is most important on consonants like THs for th and the, and for Ls, with certain accents for languages that roll their Rs or their Ls, you probably want to see the tongue there. And then for anytime there's a D, N, or T sound, if the mouth is open enough, you want to see that tongue coming up to the roof of the mouth. For the TH sound, you can actually have the tongue come out between the teeth. It doesn't always have to. Sometimes you can just touch it there, but I like to see a little bit of the tip of that tongue come through. Now, technically for the T in taking, the tongue would touch the top of the mouth, but I don't think we're ever going to see that here, especially once it gets lit, so I'm not going to bother with that. So right here on 37, I feel like is where we're going to see the tongue. So I am just going to key those there, and I generally animate the tongue on 2s. I don't get too fancy with it. I don't like to see too much overlap in the tongue. Otherwise it starts to feel floppy like a dog's tongue. So I tend to keep the animation pretty tight and pretty simple and direct. So I'll break it down 2 frames before, and then I'll go to the frame where I want to see the tongue contact and start to work here. Since her mouth isn't very far open, I may try out looking at it in wireframe mode here. There we go. And I'll just grab the tip of the tongue, pull that out there, and maybe I'll give it a little bit of rotation there. And like anything in the mouth, we want to hold it for at least 2 frames to make sure it reads. So I'm just going to hold that there And probably just animating the tip of the tongue is enough, given that it's all we're going to see. If the mouth were open more, I might go ahead and fiddle with the rest of the tongue as well, but in this case, I think just grabbing the tip of the tongue will be fine. Give it a little bit of keep alive, so it's not exactly the same on both of these frames. And then I'll have it return to its rest position 2 frames later. The tongue kind of disappears in 1 frame there, so I'm going to go ahead and just ease it out a bit more just so we don't get that tongue flashing quite so much. We'll give it a little bit of ease out from that extended pose. And then same thing on the way in. I just want to see that tongue coming in a little bit, so I'll just favor that pose. Now, beyond that, in addition to the dialogue, you can consider the tongue as part of the expression, part of your posing language for the character. So I might decide that I want to put the rest tongue into something a little bit more appealing. So let's try just selecting the base of the tongue, and then maybe I'll rotate or translate the tip down a little bit. I just want to get kind of a rounder, softer shape to fill up the mouth here. Now I'd like to loosen up the top of the head a little bit, especially on far. Originally I was planning on just doing some scaling, some local scaling on the top half of her head here. Maybe scale a little higher like that, and squash in a little bit there just to preserve the volume. The problem is I feel like it's moving the top of her hair around too much. Even if I tone it way back, I just noticed too much extra movement up in the top of the head here. So instead of that, I think I will just play with the scaling on the features themselves. The eyes and the brows are basically what I want to see squash and stretch. So I'm going to go first to the eyes and the eye sockets here. And I want to stretch the eyes and the brows in opposition to the mouth here on far. For the ah here, I'm going to just scale in, Y scale, and maybe I'll just reduce the X scale a little bit. It's pretty subtle. Let's see if I can push that further. It might be a little bit too far. I noticed the iris is starting to get elongated, so they look like ovals instead of circles, so let's just take that back a bit. Maybe I'll reduce the X scale. Okay, so that gives me kind of a nice stretch going on there. And I'm going to do the same for the brows. I think it's just the Y translates we're going to look at here. And let's just pull those up a bit. And I'll pull the mids up a little bit further, just so everything's not moving perfectly locked. That feels pretty good. And here's an updated play blast.
Are we taking this too far? Are we taking this too far?
Alright, I think this is working pretty well. Maybe the squash and stretch on the eyes here is a little too much. I mostly notice the bottom line of the eyes here traveling down a lot. Maybe I can counter that by translating the eyes up a little bit. We'll see. It's always hard to judge these things out of context, and I still have some polish to do on the rest of the body before that's done. So I think I'll probably just leave it there for now and then look at the whole thing overall. At this point, I'm going to go ahead with the rest of the animation and do the lip sync, and then I will talk about any interesting or important areas of that I think you should know about, and then we'll start wrapping the shot up.